And we are live. Good evening, everyone. I have a pleasure to chat to an extremely amazing person, Christopher. But first, I will introduce myself. My name is Dorota Choma. I am an artist and I am a creative warrior. And I will be chatting to Christopher. So please do tell us a bit about yourself.
You want me to tell you a little bit about my story? You want the encapsulated version?
Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Got you. Well, thank you so much, Dorota, for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here and share my story and share my enthusiasm for making the world a better place for who I am and what I do every single day. The condensed story about my journey is essentially that I was a former 7th grade homeless dropout who lived in the backseat of a station wagon with 18 cats and 2 dogs. I grew up with a mother with various psychological disorders, and there were a few times during that journey of being homeless on the streets and everything where my attitude and everything got pretty bad. I got into drugs, I got into alcohol, and I started hanging around the wrong types of people. And ultimately, through that process and through that journey of going through hell and back, I got to a point in my life where I was 17 years old, and I decided that I was either going to get out of this place either dead or in jail or by my own volition. And I chose obviously my own volition. And I made some very, very big decisions in my life that changed the trajectory and now have resulted where I'm at today, which is super successful and happy. That's the mini version.
Amazing. Wow. It's like, how did you manage to come out from that mindset because I assume when you were homeless, it had impact on your mental health and self-worth and fairness of this world or injustice, or whatever you name it. It had to be very difficult. How did you manage to survive that period of time?
Ooh, what a great question. You know what, honestly, I had to literally just have a leap of faith that everything that was not working for me up until that point. I was bullied in school. I was physically abused by my mom. Never knew my biological father. My sister left me when I was 9 years old. So I've had a lot of abandonment in my life, and I had no self-worth. I had no self-confidence. I was doing everything for my mom up until that point where I decided like I can't do everything for her, and if I continue to do this, I'm going to wind up dead or in jail. So what I did is I took a big leap. When you tell the universe that you're ready to do something, the universe opens up and says, okay, we're going to give you this opportunity, but we want to see just exactly how serious you are about this. So an opportunity arose for me to get out of being the homeless situation, living in this very, very trashy motel. And when I stepped into that new existence and that new experience, I started meeting new people. And through that process, Dorota, I met a gentleman named Bill White, and I learned the lesson that sometimes you have to allow other people's belief and love for you and what they see as possible for you. Sometimes you have to use that for your own fuel. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't have any basis for having confidence or willpower or anything necessarily. But once I saw somebody successful pour into me and not see me for who I was and what I look like, and have that belief in me that I could go back to school, that I could go to college, that I could have a nice paying job, I had to hold on to that. And as I held on to that, I just started studying successful people, and I started looking at what they do and started copying it, literally.
Wow, amazing. So would you say that there was a point when you reached the rock bottom?
Oh geez, how many times? Yeah. I reached rock bottom lots and lots of times. There were 2 times where one time I was about 16 years old and we were living in this trashy motel. It was my mom and I, and she was actually, I said she had psychological disorders. She was literally working for a drug dealer and simultaneously feeding information to the Anaheim Police Department. She thought she was an informant. She thought she was doing all this stuff, and it was crazy. And I could never get her attention. I could never get any validation or any love. And it was at that point where I had been drinking, I'd been smoking pot, and I decided that night I was going to take my life in her car. I was going to go take her beloved 69 Country Squire station wagon, and I was going to drive myself in the car into a brick wall and destroy it all. And then I was going to leave her with nothing and have her realize like, oh my God, my son was doing everything. My son was everything. And I wanted her to feel that. I wanted her to experience that. And so I did get in the vehicle. I was 16 years old. And by the grace of God, source, universe, I got on the California highway system, the freeways here. And I drove with the intention of finding the biggest brick wall or the biggest building and just driving that car right into it. And I just saw it. It was going to be an explosion. But I got on the freeway. As I got on the freeway, I realized on the freeway, there's no buildings, there's nothing like that. So I got on the freeway, 16 years old, driving this 5,000 pound vehicle. And I'd already been driving since I was 14 because we were homeless. I had to learn how to drive fast. And I wound up going on 3 major freeways here in Southern California. And by the time I got to the 3rd freeway, I realized I didn't want to die. And I realized what it was that I was doing was stupid. I realized it was dangerous because I was drinking and everything else. And I got the car back to the motel we were staying at. So that was one of the rock bottoms. There's been several other times, but yeah, I think rock bottom is a good opportunity for us to really have the perspective, like, do I want to continue doing this? Because I believe there's a rock bottom, and then I believe there's the bottom. And sometimes we hit the rock bottom, and sometimes we have to hit the real bottom. So for me, in those experiences, I've always chosen to say, what am I supposed to learn from this? And then apply what it is that I'm supposed to learn to get out of that situation.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, well, thank God it didn't have any brick wall there, huh? Yeah. It's like, okay, so you were on that highway and you realized that this what you want to do is just nonsense. You just can't do it. What did you do next?
What did I do next? I think at that point, that was the start of me realizing that, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. At that time, I was working probably 2 telemarketing jobs. I might've been working another job to pay for the rent on this motel. It was $100 a week. So I had these jobs and we collected cans and whatnot. But I think that at that point, I realized that my mother was not going to change. And I started realizing that my mother was never going to be a mother. She was an individual in my life that was supposed to be teaching me lessons and potentially just getting me to a spot where I needed to jump off and change things. Because had I stayed, again, I would have probably been dead or in jail, or I would have been her little, whipping boy for the rest of her life. And in some respects, she tried to have me do that. But when I broke away from that, that was the signal that she had to become stronger as well. So I learned about codependency, and I learned about, sometimes you have to make really, really, really hard decisions for yourself. But in some respects, it would be the betterment for other people that are involved in that situation. So she wound up getting stronger out of that as a result of me taking my life more seriously.
Amazing. So now you are doing so many things, don't you? You are coaching, you are speaking publicly, you are writing as well, you are having your own podcast. Tell us a bit about your projects and how it happened that you engaged in them.
Oh yes. No. Once I realized that I could sit there and I could use the trash that I'd been through and all the challenges that I've been through in my life, I had to sit there and look at it. How could I give this meaning? How could I give this purpose? And so I was sitting there thinking about one of the biggest things that I wanted to do when I was homeless in the back seat of that station wagon is that I just wanted to have a house one day that nobody else could take away from me. I wanted a home. I wanted something that nobody else could ever take away with me, that I could have my own peace of mind and everything else in there. And from that point, I started realizing that I really wanted to go back and speak to kids my age that were in junior high school that had dropped out. And so I started taking the vulnerability of sharing with people just exactly what my experience with being homeless, because I told everybody that I made up this fake life. I didn't tell anybody I was homeless. I didn't tell anybody I dug through dumpsters. I didn't tell anybody that the guy at the Burger King restaurant would give us the leftover food just so we'd have something to eat. I never told anybody that. But once I realized the power of vulnerability and the power of really recognizing that it's okay for whatever situations we've gone through, it's not our fault that we go through those situations. It wasn't my fault that I was homeless. It wasn't my fault that I had a mother with psychiatric disorders. However, it would have been my fault if I continued to stay in that situation. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go empower other people to change their perspectives. And I started with kids. I started mentoring at-risk kids who were just like me, who are on drugs and maybe out of the foster system and doing crazy things. I wanted to be there for them and let them know, like, hey man, you're going to go on a shit show of a ride. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be challenging. But if you choose to sit there and dedicate yourself to getting through that and learning the lessons and applying yourself and working your ass off, you will get out of that situation. So for me, one of the biggest accomplishments in my life was being invited to go back to the junior high school that I dropped out of and being asked to speak. So I went back there and I spoke to the 7th and 8th grade class here in Southern California. And that was an amazing experience for me because the kids came up afterwards and were like, hey, right now I'm homeless, or hey, right now I'm in this foster home, or right now my grandparents are taking care of me because my mom's on crack. And the feeling, I get chills, the feeling I got from empowering people with my story and just being vulnerable and being real, that just set me on a path to help change humanity and just help other people realize their true power, because everybody has it within inside of them. It's just a matter of when you're going to get to that point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so I just got passionate about becoming a coach and speaking and writing and doing my shows and doing whatever I can to make the world a better place. And the reason why I do that is back in 2008, I was sitting at a funeral for a coworker, and I took an opportunity to pause, and I thought to myself, if I died tomorrow, who would show up and what would they say? And at that point, honestly, Dorota, I felt like 10 or 15 people would show up, and they would bring beer and Jack Daniels and Motley Crue records and say, oh, Chris did these stupid things, and Chris did this crazy thing. And oh yeah, he helped, coach people and made the world a better place. I didn't want that. I wanted people to show up and be like, oh my God, Chris transformed my life. Chris's story inspired me. This is what I'm doing now. This is how I'm paying it forward. So I went home and I wrote my eulogy, which is something that most people are afraid of doing. They don't want to think about dying. They don't want to think about their death. For me, I went home and I wrote my eulogy because that's the end game. That's the script of what we want to be remembered for in our life. And when I wrote it, Dorota, the crux of it was that Christopher Rausch will have fought for what was right and what was fair. He will have risked which that mattered, and he will have left the earth a better place for who he was and what he did. And from that point on in 2008, that's when I really committed, and I started my company, Master Motivators, and I made it my mission to help anybody that I possibly could get out of situations that were negative for them.
Wow. Amazing. Do you still have this eulogy?
Do I still have what?
Do you still have that message you wrote to yourself? Did you frame it and keep it on the wall somewhere?
Yeah, actually, it's in my computer. I recite it every single day. I probably tell that part of the story once or twice a day because it's so impactful. And I've invited so many people to write their eulogy, because when you know where it is that you're going, if you have a clear mission of where it is that you're going, if we're going to a baseball game or going to a football game or wherever it is we're going, we have a clear direction. We get directions and we know where we're going. We know what we want to do. But with our life, we don't take that investment. We don't take that time to think about that. We just hope, wish, and pray that someday things will change. But things don't change until we change. So for me, I tell people all the time, like, if you don't know what it is that you want to be remembered for, that's your first spot. Because when you wake up every day, and I wake up with the intention to fulfill that legacy. So I set the intention every morning before my eyes open. I say, my intention today is to impact people's lives in a positive way. My intention today is to take my gifts and make the world a better place for who I am. So when I'm going through my day, because I'm not perfect, if I'm going through my day and I realize I'm not doing something that feeds that intention, then I have to ask myself, what do I need to do right now to switch gears to fulfill that intention? And that's what keeps me congruent.
That's amazing. And that's probably a very good tool to advise people who may be a bit lost at this point to write it down, like who you would like to be, what would you like to achieve, what would you like to be remembered for. Amazing. So the coaching, who do you coach now? We know that you coach children at risk, but do you coach adults as well now? Or?
Yes. Primarily what I'm finding right now, Dorota, and it's pretty interesting with everything that's gone on in the world today. I know you guys are over in the UK, we're over here in the United States. Wherever you're at in the world, we know that the last 18 months have just been crazy with COVID, with political things. Everybody's going through this massive reset. So what I'm finding right now is that people are coming to me and they're seeing me, because I left corporate. I was very successful in the corporate space. I left there 2 years ago, had a very comfortable job, had been there for 26 years, comfortably miserable, making great money, every other Friday, everything that was just like, it was good. It was good, but it wasn't exciting. I wasn't fulfilling my ambition to create that legacy. It was not, I was doing it partway, but once I started realizing that, we have to take an opportunity to jump. And there's a great video out there by Steve Harvey, the comedian talk show host. It's called Jump. It's less than 2 minutes. It's an amazing representation that, if we don't jump, our parachute will never open. And we see people gliding, we see people flying. They're like, why is that? Those people seem so happy and all this other stuff? Because they jumped. And so now what I do is I help people that are what I call comfortably miserable. They've got areas of their life where they're like, I should be happier and I should be more fulfilled, but there's something missing. So what they're coming to me for is they said, Chris, I just want to be you. I want to be free and happy just to be me. You don't care what other people think, and you're a nice person, and you're making a better place in the world, and you're not stuck to old ideas and old identities. So now I help people, predominantly actually women. It's about 70% women that I help, anywhere between the ages of 35 and 70. I literally had a 69-year-old woman hire me as a coach last year for a year, completely spun her identity around, spun everything around. She got married a year later. She actually just got married in August. She'd been widowed for 13 years. She had an identity and a belief system about herself that was so secluded and so archaic that once we started redefining what her perspectives and her beliefs were, she started taking action and started having more confidence to tell people. Like, she told her church, she goes, listen, I'm going to start dating again. And her church didn't want her to do that. Her family didn't want her to do that. But so yeah, I help all sorts of people. Yep.
Wow, amazing. Have you been at the wedding?
No, I didn't go to the wedding because of COVID, but yeah, they had a small wedding, but it was amazing. I met him on a Zoom call. It was super, super nice. It was actually just it was crazy. It was just super crazy. You know, we got her on dating sites at 69 years old. She turned 70, swiping right, swiping left, something I've never done. I've been married for 14 years. But it was just crazy. And then she met this guy, Marion, and she was scared. And she's like, you know, we're going to stay in our separate houses. And they had it all figured out. And I'm like, if you guys are in love, you'll figure it out. And then she's moved into his house now. It's crazy. She let go of all those old identities and all those old beliefs and all those, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm like, just go with your heart. Just lead with your heart, not with your head. Lead with your heart.
Yeah, and this is very difficult one, because I think we are some kind of designed and conditioned to always use that, and we forget what feels right here, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Big time. If anybody gets anything out of this conversation, listen to your heart. Listen to the whisper. We all have this whisper, and I ignored the whisper because before I had my coach back in 2019, I didn't realize this, Dorota, but I was in survivor mode. Even though I was successful on paper and everything else, my mindset was, I have to keep going. I have to figure out what plan A, B, and C is. I have to figure this out because I'm not going to fail. I'm not going to quit. So I had it in my mind always to be concerned with outcomes and results, as opposed to just being in the moment. That's where the gift is the moment. The moment is to be able to sit there. Ooh,
sorry.
No worries. Somebody's got some lungs. They're going to be singing. It's all right. My dog was barking earlier. It's not a big deal. But being able to have that ability to get quiet with yourself and be able to have those conversations with yourself. Am I happy? No. Is there something that I can change about myself? Is there something that I'm willing to invest in myself to change what's not working for me?
Why do people can't realize it themselves? Do you think, because coaching nowadays is so fashionable, it's something that so many people get into because of that trouble, defining those goals, finding the resources to get there, even realizing like what is my purpose to be here. But why so? Why do you think people have so much trouble with it?
Because they don't want to face reality. They don't want to face the truth. They have people that are with them that are holding them back, that don't want them to take those risks and take those challenges. So they're limited by the people that they're around. They're limited by, when you think about it, Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the greatest books, he talks about who are your 5. So I invite people to sit there and take a piece of paper, simple piece of paper, write it down, do a T, positive, negative, and put the 5 names that you're around the most. And are those people supporting you? Do they want you to go take risks? Do they want you to go jump and free fall? Or they say, oh, you really should do this and be safe. Oh, you really should do this. Or we all do this. And so you should do that too. No, you have to listen to your gut. You have to listen to your gut, and you have to make tough decisions. I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. I'm not saying it's easy. I've seen people leave relationships that they were miserable in for 10 years. And then after they got out of it, they went through hell for 3 years, but then they come back to me and go, Chris, I wasted 10 years hoping, wishing, and praying that person was going to change, or that I was going to change. And now I've wasted that. And yes, I had to go through 3 years of crap, but now I'm happy. Now I've met the person of my dreams. Now I'm in the job that I love to do, because back then, all those people were holding me back because they didn't want me to be successful, because it was a reminder for them that they weren't doing what they needed to do. So we have to change what it is, the programming in our brain, and we have to shed those old identities and those old beliefs so that we're empowered to wake up every day. I wake up every day before my eyes open. I say what I'm grateful for. Every single day before I wake up, what I'm grateful for, and then I go immediately into what my intentions are for the day, like I said before. So when we start the day off owning what it is and who we are and who we need to become, and we start asking ourselves the right questions, it's amazing what we can do in changing our trajectory for happiness and inner peace and impact and whatever else it is we want to do in this world. But it starts with us.
That's amazing what you say. I'm sorry about interruptions.
Hey, it's okay. I totally understand. It's late over there, and it's totally understandable. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's life. It's life. Who cares? It's life.
it is.
It's beautiful.
It
Hi,
is.
sweetie. All the way from Southern California.
Can you imagine that? And you said also about your podcast. Tell us about what it is. And I think it has a very amazing title, if I'm not mistaken. And tell me who you speak to on those podcasts and what is it all about?
Sure. No, actually, I didn't know if we talked about this before, but actually I have 2 shows that I do a week. They're video cast and podcast. The primary one is raw and unscripted. When I was thinking about, I did a live radio show for 2.5 years called the Kick-Ass Radio Show. And then I retired that, and I was sitting there thinking, I want to do a podcast. This is when podcasts first started coming out. And I said, what do I want to do? And this is when everybody had multi-cameras and their scripts and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to have to premeditate what I want to think about. I don't want to premeditate necessarily and be all planned and prepared, because that's not who Chris is. And during this time between the 2 shows is I really learned to trust my soul. I really learned to trust that whatever I'm about to say is coming from the heart. And so I created the raw and unscripted show for exactly that reason. Raw and unscripted. I don't prepare anything. I have the title. I have an idea in my head, and I hit live. I hit exactly what we're doing right now. And I jump in there either myself or with a guest, and they're raw and unscripted conversations. They're basically you and I sitting in a bar or a coffee shop, having a great jam session just like this. And just like the people that watch and listen to the show live, they jump into the comments and they'll ask questions and stuff like that. But it's completely raw and unscripted. It's open language, and it's just getting to the meat of what messes us up, and getting to that passionate point that we can actually impact people to make a difference in their life. Like last night, I just did a solo show. The podcast is the live video cast is every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. here in Southern California. So I do that weekly. And then I also have another show that I do is called The Unfiltered Experience. So again, unfiltered, just want to make sure. And so that one I have a co-host, and that one we deal with more world issues, more spirituality, more, controversial issues. Like back here in the United States, we had the murder of George Floyd last year. So we talked to African-American men, and we started getting the perspective. Like I have Black friends, I have all sorts of friends, but I found out through that process and having those conversations, those open and vulnerable, raw and unscripted conversations, where I needed to learn and adjust my perspective as well. So it's just a matter of having open and honest communication, being vulnerable. I'm always vulnerable. I don't hide anything. You can ask me anything. So it's just really about having those heart-to-heart conversations that are designed to impact people right where they sit, and hopefully cause them to shift their perspective just a little bit, so that tomorrow they wake up and go, you know what? I'm going to remember that question Chris said, to ask myself, am I being congruent with my values and my morals and my ethics right now? Yes or no? If I'm not, then I need to switch something. So it's just the impact of just being who I am, because I've spent my life always being somebody who I wasn't, to impress this person or impress that person or make that person happy. I was always a people pleaser because in my childhood, I didn't have love and significance. I didn't have that family type of thing. So I was always struggling to get it. And then I realized as I was approaching 50 and thinking about life, I'm like, what if I was just me, and then the right people for me showed up? How would I feel? What would my life feel like if I was just being me? And that's when I left corporate and decided just to become the kick-ass guy and start these shows and do these books and just impact people.
Okay, books. Oh, I love the topic of books. So what books we can read of yours?
And you know what's funny is I have a book to right over my shoulder called The 69 Tips for Living a Kick-Ass Life Volume 1. That one will be done by next year. I was trying to get it done this year, but the biggest book I'm working on that I didn't want to work on is the book about my journey with my mom. I wrote a personal development book called Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I was nearly done with it. And my mentor said, Chris, you need to put out a book. And I will admit it, perfectionism, ADD on crack. So I tend to get a little spun. And I said, oh, you want me to do the personal development book? She says, no. And I said, you want me to do the kick-ass book? She says, no. And she goes, what other books are you writing on? I said, well, I'm going to write a book specifically just about the journey of my mom and I, going through my childhood, going through being homeless, going through her being sick. I mean, the situation of my mom did not end when I left. The comedy and tragedy of that story continued on up until she passed away 10 years ago. So I'm writing a book. It's called It's Just You and Me, Kid. The story of a mother and son on a crazy journey, because I found out later in life that my mom said, well, I was going to place you for adoption when you were born. And my mom was very promiscuous. She had already had abortions. She already had miscarriages. I found out my biological father was already married and his wife was pregnant at the same time she was pregnant. So I have a brother or sister out there somewhere. Never knew my biological father. So that's the book that I'm writing. And what I found out in writing that is that I had to unpack a lot of those individual experiences to remember them. Like the time I had to call the police because my mom's husband was beating her and throwing glasses and I thought he was going to kill her. You know, I had to unpack all that stuff. And what I realized as I was writing it, it was like, man, this is some heavy shit. And so I started not writing as much because I'm like, God, you know, this is kind of, you know, painful and everything. But that's the main book I'm working on because I've had, you know, you have those little whispers, like I was saying before, there's a whisper that tells me that that book is going to become a movie and it's going to change more lives than anything I could possibly do with my voice, speaking or coaching. That's going to be the one that's going to get people to really wake up and realize that they're in control of their life. So that's the one I'm working on now. That one should be done next year.
Amazing. I am so going to read it.
That's a good story.
I believe that, you know, those journeys of people who went through stuff and struggles, they have two phases of healing here, because you are healing, but also whoever reads it is healing. And it's so powerful, isn't it?
Massively.
Exactly. So, yeah. Here we are again.
Oh, the best love. My son's 5 years old. And I honestly, after everything I've been through, Dorota, you know, I'm 52 years old now. I've had lots of successes, lots of money, lots of different things. But my son is the most important aspect of my life. We adopted him from birth. We had fertility issues. That was another one of my down moments. Struggled with chronic pain, was on opioids, broke that habit. But my son, when I see him, when I get up in the morning with him, spending time with him is way more important than anything else in my life. So you got to embrace those moments.
Oh, that's amazing. He's 5 now, isn't he?
He will be 5 November 29th.
Wow, amazing. Oh, yeah, children, huh?
It's beautiful. You learn so much about yourself. I mean, haven't you learned more about yourself in the last 5 years?
Well, I learned a lot because of my children. And this what I found, that I have unorthodox parenthood, you know. My children are, how to say, I am very liberal, you know, but always forewarned about consequences, not the consequences that I will inflict, but what life may inflict. And I had a very impressive conversation with my eldest not long ago, when he remembered our conversation when he was around 9, when he was asking me about playing some kind of silly game that was very violent, and I was very against those games. And I told him, you know what, but his friend was playing, because his friend was much older. I said, look, if you have a nightmare at night, you can come to me, but be aware that it's of your own doing, right? And if you have any problems associated with those, you know, horrors that you may experience, it's your consequence. So I'm telling you my opinion, you shouldn't play. But if you want to play, be able to bear the consequences. And he recently reminded me that, and he said, you know what, Mom, since then, anytime I was planning to do something, I always think about what would be the consequences.
Love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Isn't that amazing when your kids come back and tell you, like for me, my son, it was so funny. My son, I took him for a haircut probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I don't get stressed out, but the GPS was telling me to go somewhere. I was going the wrong places and I needed to get there. My wife really wanted to get his haircut. I was trying to let it grow long and I was all flabbergasted. And we finally got to the place. We were 15 minutes late. I'd already called the guy and we get out of the car and I'm like, come on, buddy, we got to go. We got to go. And he goes, Dad, remember your breathing. Because I teach him how to breathe. Like when you're frustrated, you take a breath, man. You take 4 seconds in, we count. And he's like, Dad, you got to do I said, come on. And I'm like, no, Chris, stop right now. Your son is trying to, he's like, is this an important lesson or not? I'm like, you know what? You're right, son. And I got down on his level and I looked at him. I said, okay, so you lead the breathing this time. And he's like, oh, bless. And we sat there and we did. I was like, yes. I love it. He does little things like that. Dad, don't you remember? This is what we do. I'm like, oh, that is the best.
Bless him. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? And it's a great legacy you are leaving in your child. Amazing. Do you have any? We know one story about that lovely lady who, in very mature age, started another chapter. But do you have any other story that stays with you because it was such a big achievement for that person and for yourself that you will always remember it?
There are so many. You're talking about my clients, the coaching clients that I've worked with, and the transformations that we've had. Yeah, there's been many. I've helped people transition from careers. I've had people transition out of marriages and relationships that didn't work. Yeah, I mean, that one, honestly, that was probably the biggest one. You know, having a 69-year-old woman come to me and she's like, I think my life's over and everything. Let me see. Oh, yes. Okay. So there was a lady that came to me for coaching, recently divorced, 2 kids, didn't know what she wanted to do with her career or anything. And she came to me, and actually I did part of it like pay it forward coaching. She couldn't really afford me. So I said, I tell you what, here's what we're going to do. I'll coach you for free, and you go out there and do 3 nice things for somebody who's a complete stranger and help them out. And her whole thing was she was more of a victim. She'd been victimized by her husband, victimized by her family, victimized by other people. So her whole victim mentality was like right here. And I said, no, you're not a victim. You're not a worrier. You're a warrior. Right. And I said, I had her start repeating and talking about different challenges in her life that she went through. And I said, would you say that you learned the most when you went through the tough challenges or when you went through the good times? And so I started getting her to reframe. She's like, well, I guess I learned most of my lessons during the bad times. And I said, okay, are you thankful for those lessons now? And she's like, well, I guess so. They've got me to where I'm at, but now I'm all sorts of screwed up. And I said, okay, that's good. So before you thought life was happening to you, I said, but now let's reframe that. And let's say that life is happening for you. If everything is happening for you from this point forward, if you have that perspective and that belief that everything's happening for you, and you go back to being a kid with childlike curiosity and a sense of adventure and a sense of wonderment and no sense of judgment, like we were when we were your daughter's age or my son's age, I don't see him doing any of that. I see him like, okay, let's go. Let's figure it out. Let's go do this. And so we shifted that. But what really shifted for her was going out there and doing other nice things for other people. She had never been in a position to go do that. And through that process of giving of herself in order to pay me, that was the biggest gift out of the coaching. And that's when I realized that one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves in the moments when we're down and we're depressed and we're sad and we feel like we're alone and everything else is to go down into a homeless shelter or to a elderly folks home. I mean, that's a little bit harder nowadays, but I would encourage people, like, if you can sing, go sing to assisted care facility, go do that, go mentor big boy, go be a mentor for kids. That has been one of the biggest, epiphanies for people, is realizing that, yes, we can think we have it bad. And if we focus on things being bad, our reticular activation system is going to find more stuff that's bad. But when we shift our perspectives, it's amazing what can happen. She ultimately wound up winning custody of her kids. She wound up becoming a spokesperson and for abused moms. And she really has taken control of her life. So much to the point now that when she articulates herself, I'm like, who have you become? What books are you reading? She goes, oh, Chris, you taught me. Because I would sit there and I will tell people, like, if I give you these 5 books, people sit there and say, Chris, I can't afford your coaching. I'm like, all the information is right there. I just said it last night on my podcast. I was very direct. I was very, very direct. And I'll be very direct here. If you guys out there in TV land are miserable and you don't know what to do, go Google it. Go YouTube it. There is literally everything. And if you don't have Google or YouTube, well, you have to have something because you're watching this. Go to the library. Go to the bookstore. All the answers are there. We have to take responsibility for ourselves to go out there and get the answers and to ask those questions. And one of the things that I'll leave you with today is the question that I came up with yesterday. What question am I not asking myself that by which if I asked myself would change what's going on in my life? So for example, if you're going through a marriage that you're not certain about, the question you're not asking yourself is, do I love my spouse? Yes or no? Am I in love with them? Yes or no? Do I want to spend the rest of my life with them? Yes or no? We're not asking ourselves those questions, because if we ask ourselves that question and we don't lie to ourselves, then from that point, we're idiots if we don't take action. If you don't want to be with that person anymore. So what we do is we short-term gratify ourselves. Netflix, booze, sex, shopping, name your addiction, sitting in your phone. And I'm watching people spend more time on TikTok than they spend reading a fucking book. I'm like, and you wonder why you're miserable. You have to take that responsibility for yourself. So me teaching people that alone is like, you have to become resourceful. And people sit there and say, well, Chris, you don't understand. It's hard. And I've got this and I've got that. Da, 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 da. I'm like, yes. Okay. So here's what I use as leverage to become more resourceful. So I think about it like this. If somebody came to me right now and said, Chris, I want you to raise $20,000 in the next 7 days. And it can't be illegal, immoral, or unethical. $20,000 in the next 7 days. What are you, crazy? What am I going to do? Da, 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 da. All these excuses. I could come up with all sorts of excuses. You're crazy, blah, blah, blah. However, when we should shift our perspective, and if somebody came into my house right now and put a gun to my son's head and said, listen, in 7 days, if you don't come up with $20,000, legally, ethically, and morally, I'm going to pull the trigger. Now I have way more leverage. I have a bigger why. I'm going to go figure out how to raise $20,000. I'm going to go out there and wash cars. I'm going to stand on street corners. I'm going to sell everything I own. I'm going to go out there and tell everybody in the world about my car. I'm going to go out there and do everything I possibly can so that guy doesn't pull a trigger. That is leverage. That is leverage. And sometimes we have to go to those dark spaces to keep ourselves motivated and inspired, because at the end of the day, and I said this on my show last night, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. I could die tomorrow. I could die in 10 minutes. You could die tomorrow. It happens. It happens. And I had this realization the other day, like, this is not a game. This is not a dress rehearsal. This time that we get, these moments that we get, those moments right now are what matter the most. And so when we choose to take responsibility for ourselves and stop blaming other people, and we become aware of the situations we're at, we accept the situation where we're at, but more importantly, we take action, that's where everything changes.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny though, that very often we need that breaking point. We need to, I used to say that I had to break into pieces to reassemble myself. I gone through a massive mental health breakdown and rediscover myself through art. But it's like we need to reach a breaking point to be honest with ourselves, to see that, that the life we were living, it's not the one we want to live, and it's a bit sad, isn't it?
It's very sad. I see so many people every single day shooting themselves in the foot over and over again, playing the someday game. I keep talking about it, hoping, wishing, and praying. I'm like, nothing changes until you change. And is it easy? No, it isn't. But every challenge then creates that opportunity. If I may say this, there's a great documentary out there. It's free, YouTube, Finding Joe on YouTube. It's the story of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And if you guys aren't familiar with the hero's journey, essentially we all go through it. And every movie we watch essentially has that. You think of Dorothy, Wizard of Oz. She goes out, she leaves herself all innocent, and then she goes out on this and she comes out and she learns more about herself, and she comes back and she tells everybody, Star Wars, all the major movies. And we sit there and we watch those movies because why? We want to see those people go through those challenges and come back victorious, but we never want it that bad for ourselves. And that is the sad part, because so many people die with their music still in them. And I've seen it over and over again. I spent time while my mom was sick for the last 2 years of her life in assisted care facilities, hospitals. And so I got a lot of chances to talk to people who were older than her. And I was very honest. I would ask them, I said, can I ask you a question? And, if you could do your life over again, what would you do differently? Do you have any regrets? And that's when regrets became my greatest leverage, because everybody said, oh, I wish I would have taken more chances. Oh, I wish I wouldn't have stayed safe. Everything was about, they wish they would have lived their life instead of just existed in it. And there's a great book. It's called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. It's written by a hospice nurse. You guys can go on and Google it. It's they'll tell you the top 5 regrets of the dying. The number one regret from this hospice nurse was that people said they wish they would have lived the life that they wanted to live and not the life they were told to live. And that is so tragic, that people spend their entire life thinking they have to live up to this certain identity or this certain ideal in order to get their parents' approval or whatever it might be, when realistically, the best thing you can do for yourself is go live your best life.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes it's only finding out what that might be. I speak to so many people who can't really define what life they would like to live. They know that they can touch the basis of, I'm not really happy, something is wrong. But how to find that destination, that goal, that purpose that we are talking about here?
hmm I mean, how to find it. I mean, one of the best ways is, again, we talked about it, is writing your eulogy. How do you want to be remembered? What did you do? What impacts did you make? What legacy did you leave? Especially if you have kids, that for me, every single day is, I want my son, if I died tomorrow, if I died in 10 minutes, he would come on here and see this interview. He would see my show last night. He would see my post. He would know every single day I'm living that vision of what it is that I'm going to do in this world. But another way to look at it is, some people say, well, I'm just not sure what I want. Identify what you don't want. That is usually pretty easy. I don't want to end up broke. I don't want to end up alone. I don't want to end up, living in a room. Okay. So what does that mean? I want a financial abundance. I want a healthy relationship. I'd like a nice place to live. Okay. So what does it take to get those three things? Okay. Then you work backwards and you make a plan and you sit there and set milestones. For me, my big goal right now, I used to have so many different goals, both monetary, physical. My goal is that I wake up and I smell the ocean every day. That's my new goal. I love the beach. The beach is like my happiest place on earth. I go down there and I just feel like I'm just at home. That's my goal. I want to wake up every single day and be able to smell the ocean, hear the ocean. So that's my goal. So in doing that, of course, my legacy is my main goal. As I've created steps to work backwards. Okay, I'm 52, so I'd like to have that by the time I'm 60. Okay, so that's 8 years away. What is that going to take? Okay, I can sell both my house. So there's a plan in place, and I visualize that every single day. I can see the balcony. I can see what it is. So that's what drives me. But when people don't know what it is that they want, it's important to decide what it is that you don't want. Another exercise I give my coaching clients is to ask them to write down what it is that they're tolerating. And that's something we don't consider a lot. Tolerations are like, oh yeah, the key sticks in the door every time I go to open it. The car doesn't start right away. My husband leaves the laundry everywhere. That my coworker, interrupts me all the time. When we think about how much we tolerate, and we think we're supposed to tolerate it, again, because as kids, like, don't be nitpicky, don't be this, don't be this, don't be that. They tell us all these different things to do. They're not telling us to have self-love and self-awareness to say, you know what, listen, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable that continues to happen. And you address it. And guess what? What would life feel like if you didn't have 5 of those tolerations on your list? And I find that people have usually about 40 tolerations. So
Wow.
I'm like, what would happen if you got rid of 5 of those? How much lighter would you feel? How much more inspired and empowered would you feel? So part of that process in realizing what it is that we want is chipping away all the stuff that's holding us back, all the stuff that we're tolerating and allowing and accepting. When do we wake up and say, I think today I'm going to be average and mediocre? I think I'm going to wake up today and not love myself enough. Nobody does that. So when we strip away some of the stuff that we're tolerating, there becomes more awareness and clarity, like, oh, wow, I can do this. And there's going to be people, of course, there's going to be people like, what's happening with you? And why are you being all bossy? And nothing makes you, you know what? I'm speaking for myself. I'm standing up for myself. I'd like for your partnership in this so we can work this out together, but I'm going to continue working on myself. And if that doesn't work for you, then perhaps maybe this isn't going to work for us. And from that point on, you keep saying that, and the universe is going to keep opening up opportunities for you to challenge that and to go into that space. You might meet somebody and go, oh my God, I'm attracted to them, but I'm in this miserable relationship. And I've been thinking, okay, the door is kind of open. Am I just going to sit here and go, I don't want to hurt his feelings. He's this and he's that. And da, da, da. Meanwhile, you got the potential for your life right there. And you just have to make that decision. And it's not easy, but that's what I help people do is it's like making those tough decisions. Like, what do you want most? What do you want most? And then go after it with fire.
Exactly. Well, I learned that also recently, that, when you focus your attention on your goal and on this, what you want to achieve, this is the law of attraction, isn't it? When you think about it, when you think how to, bring it to fruition and focus your attention, then you attract opportunities. And those opportunities start coming your way, which wouldn't if you don't put your mind into it, isn't it?
Boom, boom, boom. I have a tattoo I want to share with everybody. I put this on my arm. For those of you guys listening on the podcast, it says right here, what doesn't kill me only makes me stronger. So I'm showing that up to the camera. I put that on my arm in 2016 when I was addicted to opioids and going through chronic pain and going through a bunch of stuff at my job and literally walking my dog every night, having a conversation with myself to stay committed to the mission, to not give up. I was literally at the point, I'm like, why bother? I'm going to die anyway. I had all these negative thoughts going on my mind. And so what I had to do was I literally went and I used to say, I say this every day. Usually I say, every day is a new day. And what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. And it was before the Kelly Clarkson song came out. And I went to my tattoo artist and I said, I want it right there. I want it right there, because when I'm bitching about my son, I'm feeling, because I do it too. I get all pissy. Look down, Chris. What is this teaching me? What is this situation teaching me? Just because I've become successful and everything, I still have my challenges. When I left corporate, it was amazing how much my identity was wrapped up into what I was doing in corporate. So I had a challenge. I had an identity crash. I mean, I was all of a sudden not this person anymore, and not that responsibility, and not those relationships anymore. I was isolated. And so I had to go through that, and I had to decide, you know what, I'm going to spend 3 or 4 months getting to know who I am again. And it was uncomfortable. It was awkward. I didn't want to deal with it. But the more I faced it, the more I embraced it. And now I'm the man sitting in front of you today.
Amazing. But yeah, it's so true. Yeah, like when you finally realize what you want and plan your journeys, it can be very small steps. You know, somebody that I benefited from a kind of workshops, call it plant your flags in the sand and head there. And yeah, you know, it's not easy. It's not easy to change your life when you are in your mid life, you know, because there is so much on your shoulders. There is so much responsibility. You usually are not only living for yourself, but also for those who depend on you. And this is probably the biggest barrier that we face to change our life. And don't get me wrong, you know, I am now doing art, but I do have full-time job, which, that's a different story. But, you know, I'm trying to get into art full-time, but I can't deep dive because too much, depend on me. It's not possible to replace this, what I am, contributing to the family. So, but then I was thinking like, so should I again give up my dream? Should I again just put it and suppress it and whatsoever? No, I am working my ass off, believe me. I am not sleeping almost, because I'm doing art every day. And everybody asks me, but how do you find time? I don't find time, I make time.
Yeah. Love it.
Exactly.
Yes,
and it's like that with any change, right? We don't find time for the change. We make time to change things. And like you said, there is a bit about language, isn't it? That we are somehow raised up in the communities that ask us to hate ourselves. It's if you say good things about yourself, you are giving yourself flowers. It's like, what kind of bullshit? Where did it come from? Love yourself.
So true.
And language is important, isn't it?
Massive. I have a book on my shelf right here. It says what not to say when you talk to yourself. Because again, that's one of the things that I learned about myself, is that I was using the wrong language. I was like, oh, there you go again, Chris, you're screwing it up. It's like, or even saying the word hate. I don't even say the word hate anymore. I say I dislike, or I don't care for something, because it's like hate, every word and everything has a vibrational energy to it. And so now I just started changing the way we talk to ourselves. Is massive. Yeah. I think it's either what not to say when you talk to yourself, or what to say when you talk to yourself. Massive, because again, it goes back into this, is there opportunity? Is there possibility? I talk about the word perhaps, like, oh, I've always sucked at things. I've always been terrible at things. Perhaps I wouldn't suck at it if I got a coach. Perhaps I wouldn't suck at it if I spent an hour a day focusing on it and learning about it. Perhaps I wouldn't suck at it if I started telling myself different things. Right. It goes back to what you're saying, that childhood conditioning of, stay in your lane, do these things, play it safe, be certain, don't cause any problems, don't upset other people, make them happy. All that stuff when we were little kids, nobody ever came back to us and said, listen, here's how you process guilt. Here's how you process shame. Here's how you process X, Y, and Z. But yet we're told about, how to find the square root of an isosceles triangle or something like that. The truth is, and I've done this childhood psychology conditioning part, we're born at 9 months. Our emotional intelligence, the part of our brain that has the emotional intelligence, isn't formed yet because we wouldn't fit through the birth canal. So all of that happens afterwards. All of that's part of our conditioning process. And our caretakers, God love them, they didn't know any different. And they just went through and like, okay, I'm going to teach them tough love. I'm going to teach them, not realizing that you're screwing them up for the rest of their life, thinking that you're doing a good job. So we as adults, we have to go back there and rewrite those scripts and change what it is that our perspective is about ourselves and about the world. And when we do that, there's so much more love and abundance rather than fear and anger. It just absolutely blows my mind. So that's why I'm always telling everybody we got to help heal each other, and then therefore we'll help heal humanity.
Yeah, and it's good to challenge each other. If we hear, I always used to say, like, would you say that to your best mate? This is what you are saying to yourself, So treat yourself like you would like to treat somebody else, because you are you. You need some love from yourself, because if you don't love yourself, there is no guarantee there will be somebody else loving you. It's like the first person who should love you, it's you.
Oh, it's so true. I've given probably over 125 complimentary coaching sessions since COVID started. Just my way of giving back. I give one session, it's an hour, whatever somebody's got going on. I help them through that, give them some strategies. It's just my way of giving back. It makes me feel good. But one thing I started noticing, Dorota, in this process of interviewing people is that concept of self-love. And so I would start asking people, like, I want to ask you a question. I don't want you to think about it, but I want you to give me your first answer. And they're like, okay. I'm like, do you love yourself? Yes or no? No. Well, I guess, well, maybe, sort of, da, da, da. I'm like, no. You have to love yourself first. And when I talk to people, I'm like, talk to me about how you care for yourself. Let's talk about what's the quality of your sleep. Oh my God, my sleep sucks, blah, blah. Okay. Then I go into a very, very simple, basic question. How much water do you drink a day? And they look at me cross-eyed like, water? What does that have to do with my attitude? What does that have to do with the shit I'm in and all this other problem? I'm like, your body is like 80% water, depending on what study you look at, 70%, 80% water. You drink one glass of water a day, you're dehydrated. How well is your brain going to work? If your car is on 1 quart of oil, how well is your engine going to run? So I'm finding that I just tell people, just drink half your body weight in ounces here in the United States, half your body weight in ounces of water every single day. Hydrate yourself, get some deep breaths, get some air in, make sure your nutrition is as good as it possibly can be. People sit there and say, well, I can't afford to eat well. Well, then are you going to be able to afford to pay for your prescriptions later and your office visits and your hospital visits? Dorota, I've talked to so many people over the years who are older than me who said, oh, I don't have time. I can't eat, excuse. And then I have diabetes. I have a friend of mine who's on 20 medications. He used to be in way better shape than me, but he got lazy and he got complacent and he got media. And now he's on 20 medications. And I'm like, holy shit, dude, you don't need to be on those. My doctor says I need to be on them. He's so bought into what everybody tells him to do that it's going to kill him. I'm afraid that he's going to die before he's 60. And I'm just like, wow, what? So we just got to have that self-care. We got to take care of ourselves, because when we take care of ourselves, that tells the universe that we're ready for the next thing. But if we're putting donuts and Pepsis and alcohol and blah, 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 all that other shit in our system, we're not telling ourselves we love ourselves. This is the only body. This is the only vessel we get. And if we take care of it, that's going to allow us to make those challenging decisions. That's going to allow us the strength and determination in those tough times to keep on going. But if we're weak physically and mentally, we're not going to do that. We're going to stay stagnant and complacent until something, like you said, you're going to hit rock bottom. And all of a sudden you're going to realize at 69 years old, like my coaching client did, like, my time's running out. I'm like, your time is just starting. With medical advances and technologies, you take care of yourself now. That's what I'm saying. I'm 52 right now. I could easily go, well, average life expectancy is 78 years old. So, I've got 26 years left. Okay, that's frightening. But when I think about take care of myself now, as medical advances come out, oh yeah, we figured out a way to kill cancer. We figured out a way to extend heart disease. I could live until I'm 120. But if I don't take care of myself now and I get to 70, all these new advances came out, but Chris, you're already fucked up. You can't do these. I would have a massive amount of regret. So we have the ability now to live much longer than we ever have. So 52 could be the starting point. I could be like an infant with everything else I've already learned. By 70, be on top of the world, impacting billions of lives. You got to take care of yourself. You have to. It's massively important.
Amazing, and so true. There is a question from Adam asking about the guitars behind you and if we are going to hear you play tonight.
No. You're not going to hear me play tonight. Actually, I need to take. Well, actually, this one's my Brett Michaels guitar. It's probably not in tune. It would probably take me 10 minutes to get in tune, and then I would probably be able to play 3 chords. So they're just for beauty. But thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. Maybe next time, have me back on the show, and I'll do a rendition of "Every Rose Has a Thorn."
Oh, definitely, definitely. I think that we can't exhaust the topic, you know, within one show. So definitely, we will have you back. But we touch a bit of topic that I'm very passionate about: childhood, conditioning, raising children, possibly screwing them up for the rest of life. Do you think that coaching should be a subject taught in school? Like that coaching should be offered at certain age in school to help children to build better lives in future?
That is a great question, Dorota. I've never been asked that question before. My first instinct on that question is that not necessarily the children should be coached, but I definitely believe the teachers, the principals, the school system in them of themselves need to be retrained. We need to refocus our priorities on not so much what, being able to find out what a prime number is or an integer or all the other stupid stuff that we're taught. That there should be some emotional intelligence coaching done, in not coaching but teaching in those classes. Instead of worrying about, it's important to study history, but hey, let's talk about shame and blame and guilt, maybe at 6 years old or 5 years old, and start understanding, that if somebody makes you feel this way, that you have the choice to change what that is, and you have the choice to open your mouth and to say what's bothering you. Yes, I definitely believe that. My passion right now is on the kids. I still love adults, and I still think grownups are great. But at this point, for me, and I know you'll appreciate this, my sincere intention, my heartfelt intention with everything that I do overall. We talked about coaching and books and all this other stuff. My intention right now is to beg adults that, yes, we have differences, and there's certain aspects that we can say, I don't like this and I disagree with this, and we should divide and all this other stuff. But my goal, Dorota, is that, and I don't think this will happen in my son's time or your daughter's time, but in our kids' time, I want my son, when I'm a grandpa, and he says, Dad, little Elvis came back from school today, and they were talking about history, and they were talking about what happened back in 2020 and 2021, and how everybody changed the trajectory, and they stopped fighting, and they started listening. I get chills, and they started loving one another. And it wasn't perfect, but in that history book, it talks about how we as adults got collective and said, hey, listen, we need to leave this earth a better place for who we are and what we do. We got global warming, we got climate crisis. There's a lot of stuff going on. We as adults have an opportunity now more than ever to say, you know what? All of this stuff that I thought was important isn't important. What can I do to set up the next generation so that they don't inherit a bunch of shit? And so that's my biggest thing. I want my son to grow up in a world. I feel bad that he can't go out in the street by himself and play. I feel bad he can't. I used to ride my bicycle all over. I want to have communities and neighborhoods and places safe for kids to grow up and not be scared, not to wonder if every single stranger is going to try to pick them up and everything, that we start healing ourselves, because that'll make definitely the world a better place. And there's so many people that need to heal right now. It's massive. And that's just my mission. I want to see kids be able to inherit the world and be able to take it to the next level.
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking, as my child, one of them not long ago, was in the age that had to choose subjects for GCSEs, and it's about choosing his future, isn't it? But I argue with the system designed in the way that 15-year-old need to know what he wants to do,
right?
Because my child is quite mature. However, did you know what you want to do at 15?
Eat, survive.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking, that hearing how your coaching can change people's lives, and show them that direction. I think that every child at the stage of needing to choose that subjects that they will study and associate their career with would benefit from some proper coaching, few sessions to get them thinking what that leads to where and who they want to be, and I think it should be mandatory. Well, they have these career progression advisors,
right?
Yeah. I will
learn to go there. Yeah, you got to learn how to love and discover who you are, and to be open to that journey, because again, when we were kids, what did you want to be when you were a kid, Dorota? Think about that. Like for me, I wanted to be a race car driver and a rock star and a astronaut. Oh, you shouldn't do that. You're not that good. You're not good at math. You shouldn't do that. You should get into your family's business. And we're told what we should do. We're told to fit in this little box. And if you do that, then you get our love and appreciation. No, kids should be like, if you want to go do that, let's go do that. Let's go try it. Let's go experiment.
Well, you have a life example of a person who always dreamed to be an artist and was told that I can't go to art school. So I rebelled because, if I couldn't be educated in it, I was perceiving I'm not going to be good enough, right? So I abandoned art for most of my life, and it led me to a massive, massive breakdown. But yeah, it was, you can't do it because you will become a junkie. There was this stereotype back then. It's still there. I think that, if you're an artist, you are this crazy one, mixing with drugs and people that are from the margin of, whatever. And I was not allowed to do it, and I'm thinking, but why? What was really, because, this stereotype that I will become a junkie. Okay, there was a financial aspect as well. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
That, it wasn't very affordable back then, but I'm thinking, why we don't allow children to chase their dream? Why we are so, into boxes and into, limits and barriers. It's devastating, considering how many of us, looking back, found themselves in this breaking point because of unfulfilled dreams, because of unfulfilled desires. So this is something that should get us thinking, don't you think that, it's look who you wanted to be, and maybe this will help you to design what you do next.
Mm-hmm. And again, it starts with us. It starts with us, especially if people listening and watching this out there, if you're parents, it's so much like they want, like, I didn't go for my dreams and I went practical and I'm safe. So that's what I want for you, and we don't want, and necessarily it might be a subconscious thing. I don't know the psychology behind it, but why wouldn't you want, your kid to go explore and to be happy? And if you didn't have that opportunity, I would want that more than anything. I mean, I had limited opportunities, limited capacities. I had so many chores. I was a latchkey kid. When my son says he wants to go do, hey, Dad, I want to do go-karts. Okay, let's figure out a way to get a go-kart. Let's go do that. You want to be a go-kart racer? Let's go. My mom, we can't afford that. It's too dangerous. It's like, what? It's like, no, you have to go explore that. And through exploring that with your kids, we can also re-engage with our little kid ourselves. And that's one thing that I'm glad you brought that up, because when I look at people nowadays, I don't look at them as adults. When I'm having a coaching conversation with them, I look at them and I see, a 5 or 6 year old boy or girl sitting in the sandbox who's still, physically this older person, but they're still, psychologically stunted at that age. They're literally, and my mom taught me this. It was so crazy. This is how I learned to understand and have empathy for my mother. My mother was in her 40s at the time when she had said this. That really pissed me off. And she goes, I'm 4 years old. I'm going to be 4 years old. I'm like, Mom, what the fuck? You're old. You're an adult. Stop saying that. Stop playing with stuffed animals. Stop. No, you're a grown ass adult. You need to start acting like it. And that was for me. I was like 4 years old. And as I was going through and processing and having, some hostility towards her for being homeless and to pick the cats over me. I mean, literally, we didn't have to be homeless, but she would not give up the cats. She had 30 cats. We wound up with 18 in the car. The other ones got away. Guess what we did every night? We had to go back to the house that we got evicted out of to try to find these other fucking cats when we already had 18 cats inside of a car. That's how bad it was. But for me to go back and do the work I've done on myself, and through therapy and through coaches and everything else, and through reading hundreds and thousands of books, probably by now, not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds or 1,000 books at least. Like, okay, where did she get stuck? 4 years old. Oh, bingo. That's when her parents divorced. And that's when her father, who she wanted his love and affection, that's when he went off and he became a part-time dad. He was only there for like Mother's Day, Easter, Christmas, all that other stuff. And she was stuck with her mom, who had her own psychological disorders. And her mom gave her everything and wanted her to have everything, but it was all about school and education. My mother actually went to the University of Santa Barbara, I think at 16 years old. That's how hard my grandmother pushed her to be scholastically brilliant. She never got a chance to be a kid.
Yeah.
She never got a chance to be a kid. So what was she doing for the rest of her life? She was promiscuous with men, trying to find that validation from a male counterpart. And then she would have stuffed animals. She would have the cats because they were safe and they were certain. And that's how she got her love. And meanwhile, she was placed into an adult world where she didn't have the coping mechanisms to be able to deal with all that. And so when I went and I said to myself, if I walked in her shoes and experienced what she experienced, might I be like her? Yes. If I went through all those experiences, I would be like her. So that gave me empathy and understanding and forgiveness to say, you know what? It was a situation that we were in that both of us did the best we could, but now it's up to me to take responsibility to change that trajectory. She didn't even want me to have kids. She said, physical violence has been in our family, blah, 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 blah. You know, you were abused, I was abused. So that stands to reason that you would abuse. I'm like, no, that's a choice. That you chose to use that as your mechanism for dealing with stuff. You could have easily said, you know what, instead of slapping the crap out of my kid right now, I'm going to go stand outside and take a couple of deep breaths. I said, but no, you chose to react and beat the shit out of me for not filling the cat's water bowl. So that process of being able to have empathy and forgiveness for people is huge, because from that point on, I didn't see her as a mother. I did not expect her to be a mom from that point forward. I'm like, you're a human being. We have a relationship. I have a responsibility. I care for you. You know, let's do this. And that's the way it became. And then I didn't have the expectation anymore that she was going to treat me like a mom. It wasn't even until 2 weeks before her death that she finally got real about her smoking and everything else. It's like she finally grew up and learned the lesson 2 weeks before she died. And I always remember that. And I tell people all the time, it's like, you can learn your lesson now, or you can wait until you have an epiphany when you're on death's door and go, oh shit, it really is going to happen. I guess I better get real with myself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You need to live your life now. We are too much conditioned to live in the future. Like, oh yeah, tomorrow. Oh yeah, next year. Oh yeah, when I retire, I will do that. And so on and so forth. And then you're finding yourself at the end, and it's too late. So yeah, live your life, guys. And let's wrap it up, because we already exceeded the time, but I so love chatting to you.
Oh no, it's been awesome. It's been awesome. You've asked great questions, Dorota. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So let's wrap it up. And could you perhaps give a message to someone who at this point is at the very bottom, a very dark place, and is like struggling to find hope to go on? Like, what would you say to them to pick themselves up?
That is a great question. That doesn't come with any responsibility, does it? Honestly, I would tell that person, number one, ask for help. I'm finding a lot of people who are sitting in quiet desperation, and again, hoping, wishing, and praying that something's going to change, when realistically, it's not a sign of weakness to say, hey, listen, I'm struggling. Can I talk to you? You got to reach out. You got to reach out, and you got to find the right people that will help and support you. But above all else, you have to sit there and have the perspective right here and right now that everything has happened in your life to prepare you for this moment, to prepare you. You're at your darkest moment. You have been preparing all your life for this. And now it's your choice. Am I going to be a victim to the situation? Am I going to continue thinking and doing the same things that I've been doing? Or is it time for me to stand up, shake the dust off, and get serious about taking responsibility for where I'm at and where I'm going and what I'm doing? And some of that involves going through a period of either 2 to 5 years of hell, whether it's overcoming addictions. But I can guarantee you this. Because I've seen people do it. The challenge is miserable. The challenge is hard. The detoxing is hard. I was on opiates. I went through that detoxing. I can't imagine being hooked on heroin. I can't even imagine. I read a book about a guy that got off heroin, and 10 days he sat in a bathtub going through hell. And I was just like, oh my God. But then he got through that, and he's like, had I gone through that hell, I wouldn't have so much passion and love for being sober and being aware and being out in nature. So we have to go through that birthing process, just like getting here. We had to go through the birth canal. We come into the world bloody, gooey, screaming, fighting for air. And then we get to this point where we're like, okay, cool. And that's the point that each of us needs to do, is we need to take responsibility. There's no shortage of information, no matter where you're at in life. Start reading, start learning, start applying. Take one thing, take one action every single day that moves you out of your comfort zone. You will start progressively building self-confidence. Take a look at the things you're tolerating. Take a look at the people in your life. Even just removing one person out of your life that's toxic and wishing them well, not being hateful or anything else. I had to wish my sister well. I met back up with her in 2005. Long story, but I wished her well. I'm like, I'm not going to be around you. And she's my half sister. And I sincerely, I wished her well. I'm like, good luck. Don't ever call me again. And that was one of the best experiences, because I could see that I was going to make it my responsibility to fix my sister. She didn't want to. She was becoming my mom and doing it sooner and better than my mom did it. And my mom predicted that. So I was like, okay, good luck with that. So sometimes we have to wish people well in our life that aren't serving our best interest. And in those situations, those people may get stronger. They may get more resentful. They may get more hateful, but you just keep walking on. You're like, hey, I got love and support for you. You do you, I'm going to do me. And you progressively do that. You get around the right people. Those right people start supporting you. All of that, those little itty bitty steps create compound interest. And in 6 months, a year and a half, you start looking back going, wow, this is pretty amazing. I'm doing this. And you start getting more and more confidence. And that feeling starts coming inside of yourself more. And every single person mostly that I've coached that has come from those depths, all they want to do now is go help other people in those same situations. So there is so much beauty and magic and love in the ability to go through those challenges and come out the other side and go, whew. And to this point, I highly recommend it. I'm sure you guys have it over there on Amazon. Because we wanted to show my son how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. So on Amazon, they have this thing. It's called a bucket of butterflies or something like that. Whatever you can find it. We got like 5 caterpillars. You get these little bitty larvae, you can't even see them. You get this thing and you watch the caterpillars grow and you're taking care of them. And then you see them go through the cocoon process and you see them struggle. And then you see their wings coming out and you see them in this thing. And then you get to go let them go. And we've done this twice already. And the last time I cried when I let the butterflies go. I named one of them. We named him Kevin Bacon because his it was just something we do here in the house. And his wing was the last one. His wing was compromised. And I felt so bad. I'm like, this poor butterfly isn't going to get to be a butterfly. How tragic is that? And I started thinking about in life. And so I just kept trying. I'm like, I Googled, how to fix butterfly wings. And I found out that pretty much Kevin Bacon was going to be a pet. But I never gave up. I went out there every day and I felt personally responsible. I'm like, you're supposed to be a butterfly. You're supposed to be a butterfly. I'm not going to have a pet butterfly. That's not fair to you. You're supposed to go fly and live life. And so every day I would go out there and sometimes I got him on, I have pictures of this. I have video. I got him on my arm or my finger. I'm like, fly. And sometimes he'd fly. And one day, Dorota, I have video of it. I almost killed myself because I almost tripped over something and landed in the pool. Is the butterfly, he started flying. And I remember feeling like a little boy, like, oh my God, he's flying. He gets to go be a butterfly. So even just that process of getting butterflies and watching that cocoon process and realizing the struggle, but the beauty is that you never stop trying to fly. And I actually felt like kind of sad. I'm like, he's not coming back. Go Kevin Bacon. So I would look out my backyard because I wasn't sure if he fell and I was afraid he was going to fall and he was going to die or something like that. So I was walking all around. And then like an hour later, I'd see a orange butterfly. I'm like, Kevin Bacon, he came back to say hi. Because I would be like, let me know, give me a sign. So yeah, we all have that opportunity to have that cocoon, have that ability to fly. And it's just, we have to take responsibility for ourselves and make those challenges, make those investments, get around the right people. And I promise you, it's not easy, but it's way worth it.
Yeah, spreading those wings to the full glory is the reward you are looking towards. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on. There is, the TV, the Mental Health Warriors TV is run by donations. So whoever is watching would like to contribute to that lovely cause, there is a PayPal information going down the bottom of the screen. And tomorrow at 11 a.m. there is a morning session with Adam, who will have Martin Jones to join him and to have a chat. And I'm sure, Christopher, that I will abuse you by calling you again and having a chat with you at some point, as I think that our topic is not exhausted. And definitely let us know when this book comes out, because we are so going to talk about it.
I will. It's been a pleasure to be on the show. I appreciate you, Dorota. You've asked crazy questions. And if anybody wants to connect with me, they can just simply go to my website. It's ChristopherRausch.com. RAUSCH, ChristopherRausch.com. If you can't remember that, noexcusescoach.com. That's another place I would love to connect with your viewers and your listeners. My gift to you guys, again, is that if anybody wants to take me up on that complimentary coaching session, that's my gift for watching this, for taking this to heart. So just reach out to me and DM me and I'll send you my calendar and we'll make that happen. So that's just my gift of paying it forward. And thank you guys for having me on the show and the ability just to share my passions.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so generous. And grab your opportunity, people, because it's so contagious, the enthusiasm of yours and your teaching. It's just so empowering. So Good luck, people. Have a lovely, lovely night, and see you soon.
Stay kick ass. Love you guys.